All right, hello everyone. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and the class is AWD1100 C# Programming online for the spring 2024 semester. Our book is Muroc C# 8th edition, and in the previous lecture, I went through Chapter 1, where we talked about what C# was all about, and I built the app that they're actually going to be working on in this chapter and in the next chapter. Now, as I go through this, I'm going to do it nice and slow. And hopefully I'm not going to miss anything. Okay? So we're in Chapter 2, as it says right here. And given the form design and property settings for a simple app, use the form designer to design the form. We'll do that. I don't know if I'm going to use their exact names. It's really not that important. And it'll give me a chance to show you a few things about naming conventions and the like. Number 2, when necessary, rename the form, the project, the solution files for an app. We'll talk about how you can do that. Number 3, customize the Visual Studio environment for use with C# by setting the startup and development options. We'll look at that as well. Our knowledge objectives: describe the use of the toolbox in property windows or properties windows. Describe the name and text properties of a form or a control. Describe the enabled read-only and text-aligned properties for a control. Describe how you would A, adjust the tab order for the controls of a form, B, set access keys for controls, and C, set the default buttons for enter and escape keys. So here is our new property dialog, okay? And in the last chapter, again, we built this. Is this the one I call test? Yes, it is. So we've got test, and in here we have form test, and we also have console test, right? Well, let's open this up by opening up test solution. And let's do two things in here. All right, so we've already built this. We're going to rebuild it in this chapter. But where I've called this Form 1, I'm going to rename this. And I'm going to call this Chapter, C-H-A-P-T-E-R, Chapter 01 dash future value. Now you'll notice as soon as I hit enter in a minute that these file names are going to change as well. All right, they're all linked together, so to speak. All right, now, there we go. It's back. Everything's cool. Now, with that said, I'm going to do a file save all. Probably don't have to, but I'm going to close this. So I'm closing my Chapter 1. So we've got form test in here. And it looks like I changed the wrong thing. I changed the name of the form, which is okay. Chapter 1 future value. All right, let's change the name of the project as well. All right, so let's do a rename on here. And let's call this Chapter 01. Okay, now, since this was the form, this is really not a good name for the form. All right, what do I mean? I'm going to rename it again, and I'm going to call this FRM, which is the way you usually start names, and we'll just call it FRM future value. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. There we go. This should come back and show me the same form. There we go. And now we've got Chapter 1. All right, plus we've got console test. Well, let's do this. Let's make one more change. And instead of just calling it Chapter 1, let's call it Windows Form App dash Chapter 1. All right, and we're going to call the other one that we haven't even touched right now, this console test. All right, and we'll call this one console app dash Chapter01. Now we've got two projects in here. All right, we've got a console app and a Windows Forms app. Let's close that. All right, now I'm going to just close these, which will basically close the app for me. Okay, everything's closed. I'm not worried about it or anything else right now. Everything's cool. All right, so let's just go on here. Not really a lot of slides in this chapter, but they talk first here about the create project dialog. Now, what we're going to do here is a couple things. All right, and in this chapter, all we're going to do is we're going to rebuild the future value form, Windows Forms app. That's it. All right, that's it. So you've already seen this, but when this comes up, all right, so it says the create new project dialog. All right, and it says how you can change your startup options, etc. That's totally fine. We can do that. So we can go to Tools, Options, select the General category, and on Startup, Open, and we'll look at the drop-down list. Let's do that and see what it does. All right, so we'll come into here and we'll do the Tools, Options. All right, no projects open right now, so I'm going to do a Tools, Options. All right, and it brings up this Options dialog. Next, we're told, oh, not there, sorry. Next, we are told that, there it is, that we want to select the general category under environment. So select the general category under environment. That ain't it, and that ain't it. Now, where am I? There we go. Select the general category under environment. Well, let's see. There's environment and there's general, so we're already there. Okay. And next, select an option from the on startup open drop-down list. On startup open, start window, most recent solution, or empty environment. I'm going to leave it at start window. Okay. Now let's take a quick look at what's here, because there's a lot of stuff. All right. Playing with a status bar, etc. Most of the stuff here you're not going to change, period. But there might be a few things that you do want to change. When you go in here, there are settings for fonts and colors. Some people like to have a dark background, where I like the lighter one. I think it shows better. There's some find and replace options. And there's some other stuff in here as well. I mean, there's a whole boatload of stuff. All right? But I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to cancel right now. Now, this one you've already seen, but let's do it again. Okay, let's do this one again. And that is, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to move it way over here, and grab this and move it down here. And I'm going to grab the toolbox when it comes up and move it over here. I mean, you can customize the screen and make it look any way you want. But occasionally, at least, what's going to happen is you're going to do something like this, and you're going to change your mind. You're going to say, I wish I wouldn't have even done this. So if that happens, you go to Tools, Import and Export Settings, reset all settings, click Next. Now, if you do like this, you can save the current settings and give it a name if you want to. Most of the time when this happens, you'll want to just go back to the default. So you'll click No, just reset everything, and you click Next. Make sure it says C#, Visual C#, click Finish, and click Close when it comes back, and boom, everything's back. Now, it looks like this isn't back here, but if that happens, you'll just say View, and you go down to Properties window, and there it is. And if you don't see anything here for your toolbox, you can go to View and Toolbox. Boom. There is a thing on the toolbox. It's called a push pin, and it's right here. And if you click it, it keeps that, it locks that into place. So if I were to open up a new form right now, it would open up in here. If I don't have it open, all right, or if I unpush that push pin, all right, so if I don't want it, it'll look like this, which means I can make it wider, narrower, etc., however I want to set it up. All right, okay. Now they say in here you can say save your settings. Of course you can do that. Configure your new project dialog. All right, now you've seen this before, but I'm going to do it again anyway. What do I mean? I'm going to go back to the project right here, and I'm going to choose from my solution, right mouse click, and choose Add New Project. And it comes up and it looks like this. You can see we've got a couple in here. And it also says recent project templates that we used. Well, I want this Windows Forms app .NET Framework again, right there. So I'm going to click on that and click Next. Now, this is a good screen to stop on because what you see here, project name, is what's going to be down here. It's going to be the name of the project. What you see here, location, is where you're going to save that. Since we already have a folder that we're using to save these in, it's going to default to that folder. We could save it into a new folder or whatever. What many of my students do is they make one folder that they call HOTS. They make another folder that they call homework. And they save all their hands-on tests into the HOTS. They save all of their homework into the homework folder. Okay? Now, the framework that's here, you shouldn't have to touch this. Just leave it. This is the latest and greatest, .NET Framework 4.7.2. But I don't want to give it that project name because it's just Windows Forms app. So right now, I want it to be Windows Forms app -Chapter02 because that's the chapter that we're in right now. And you'll notice as soon as I click Create, there'll be another one right below this one that will say Windows Forms app -Chapter02. And lo and behold, there it is. Now it opens up other files too, but for now, just so you see that. All right. And it's got Windows Forms app 1. I don't want the 1 in there. So I can either click on it like this, right mouse, whoops. I can either click on it, right mouse click, and choose rename, or I can double click on it. And I'm just going to remove the 1 from there. You don't have to do that and call again whatever you want. All right, and there are a bunch of files in here. These are property files. They've got some dependencies and some internal stuff. Again, you typically won't touch that. You won't touch the references. The app.config you won't touch. The only ones that you care about in here are the form1.cs and the program.cs. The form is this file here. Okay? All right. Let's just keep going. As it says, I already mentioned this to you. Now, don't worry, when I showed you 4.7.2 in this, wait, this says .NET 7.0. Don't worry about it. It's a different kind of program that you're creating there, so don't worry about it. All right, so we have here an invoice total form. Let's make this one right now. All right, so what did I call this? I called my other one, whoops, Windows Forms app Chapter 2. That's fine. Okay, so that's what we're working on right now. And let's build the one you see right here. When you look at it, this says invoice total. So we're going to put the text in here as invoice total. We're going to rename the form FRM invoice total. Then we will have 1, 2, 3, 4 labels, 1, 2, 3, 4 text boxes. 3 of the 4 are going to be read-only. And we'll also have a calculate and an exit. Let's add one more button in between these two that we're going to call clear. All right, so this is what we're going to build right now. And it'll look very similar to this. It won't look exact probably, but it'll look real similar. So first let's come in. Looks like that had to be more like this. Okay, so this said invoice total. So I'm going to change the name of the form. I'm going to right mouse click and choose rename. And I'm going to call this FRM invoice total and hit enter. And it says you are renaming a file. Would you like to rename any dependencies or anything in the project that's currently referring to that? Almost always you'll just say yes. I don't have anything yet, but it's not hurting anything. All right, there. All right, so I don't want it to say form 1 here. I want it to say invoice total. So clicking on the form, I'm going to go down to text, and I'm going to put here invoice total and hit enter, and you'll see it now says invoice total. Not a big thing, but just so you saw it. All right, let's do this in a little bit different order this time. Let's start by creating our buttons. So there's our first button. And this is going to say calculate in just a minute. But I'm going to copy it and paste it twice. I'm going to have 3 of these. Okay? Now, you'll learn through look, feel, just playing around with this. There's a lot of different ways to do what I'm about to do. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of them. How am I doing that? I'm holding down on the left mouse button and I'm dragging. That's called lassoing. So I've lassoed those 3 controls. Now, I'm going to come over here, and you've seen me do this before. I'm going to change the font size to 20, the font style to bold, and the font name to Arial. Boom. Now I've done those. Okay? And this is going to be my calculate button. So let's do that one first. BTN calculate. And we will call it for the text calculate. But I'm going to put an ampersand before the C. We'll talk about why in a bit. That's the first one. The second one will be clear. So I'm going to call this BTN clear. Now, I can't do an underscore CLEAR. I'm already using that one. So this one, I'll use the L. So I'll say C ampersand LEAR. And you notice it's kind of hard to see, but the underscore is under the L. Finally, I'll do an exit right here. Okay? And for that one, this will be BTN exit. And it's kind of convention that it's E ampersand XIT. So there's my buttons. Okay? Then we were told we needed 4 text boxes. So let's make those next. I'm making the labels last just for a little variety. So here's the first one. We'll make it about, I'll make it there. And we'll do it about that. That should be plenty big. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the font size in this one like we did with the other ones. I could do it just once at the end. I'm just showing you, like I said, a little variety here. All right, now I want to make 3 more of these. Okay, there's one, and there's one. I like to space them out so they look pretty much, like you would think they would, and they're spaced out pretty much, etc. All right. Now, these last 3 that are in here are read-only. So I'm going to highlight those. I'm going to go down to read-only. There it is. Now I can either click here, click the down arrow and change it to true, or I can double click on it. Okay. Those are now, all 3 of those are read-only. Okay. Now let's go in and add our 4 labels. Remember, labels are a little bit different. Here's our first one. All right, right there. And you have to typically, you'll want to go in and set auto size from true to false. Now I can change that, make it any size I want it to be. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Now, one thing I don't like is everything is gray in here. So I'm going to click on the form itself right here, and I'm going to go to back color, and I'm going to click, and it brings up this down arrow, and I'm going to choose custom, And I'm going to choose a nice yellow here. That makes it a lot easier to look at. All right, in my opinion, for whatever that is or is not worth. So I'm also going to go to this label, and I want to make that the next darker shade of yellow, so it stands out. There we go. All right, finally, I want to go in here and do a couple more things. First, I want to go in and I want to change the font size, same way that I've been doing it. And again, as I mentioned, we could have just done this once. There you go. I want to change the actual text that's in here and align this so it goes middle right there. I kind of like that. All right. And I'm going to make 3 of those. But before I do that, I want everything that's in here to be centered. So I'm going to, again, draw an invisible thing around these. They're now all chosen. And I'm going to go down to text align. And I'm going to double click and then double click again. Now they're all centered. All right, now I'm going to grab this label and I'm going to copy it 3 times. Now it's nothing fantastic, but it doesn't look too bad either right now, in my opinion. Again, for whatever my opinion is or is not worth. But I'm now going to highlight everything. Now I can draw this around here, and that's totally fine. Or with nothing highlighted, I should be able to do a Control A and highlight all of them. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to right mouse click on any control and choose Lock Controls. Now my interface is locked into place. I can unlock it by redoing that to any control, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. So what do we have here? What are we building? Subtotal discount percent. So this will be subtotal. So I'll call it LBL subtotal. And it will say subtotal. All right, so there's the first one. And I'm going to make this one, while I'm at it, I'm going to call this one TXT subtotal. All right, so those are done. The second one is going to be discount percent. So that's exactly what this will say. And it'll be LBL discount percent. All right. And I'm going to put the text in there of discount percent. There's that one. And let's put a colon in there like I did with that one. So put a colon in there at the end. All right. And we'll make this one TXT discount percent. All right, we'll leave it empty. And again, that's read only. All right, the third one here, we've got discount amount. So again, this will be LBL discount amount. And this will be TXT discount amount. All right, and the last one that's here, this last one, according to what we have here, we'll just say total. So it'll be LBL total. And the name will be total with a colon. There, we've got that. This will be TXT total. Now, I think I've renamed everything. But if I want to be sure, I can come over here where this white bar says TXT total right now and click this down arrow. And it'll show me everything that I have on the screen. And when you look, you'll notice everything indeed has been renamed. Okay? So this is probably a good time to do a file save all. So now that everything's been saved. All right. Now I really don't need my toolbox anymore because my interface is complete. But all I'm going to do is just make it smaller like that. You don't have to do that. That's just what I'm doing. All right. Now, couple things. I would like this to come right in the middle of the screen when it starts to run. But notice when I run it now, that's not what happens. And in fact, it's going to run the last one that we created. So let's get out of that. You have to always set it to your current project. So I'm going to right mouse click on there and choose Set as Startup Project. Now it's going to come up here and it will be this one, but you'll notice it didn't put it in the middle. Why? Because I didn't tell it to. All right, I'm going to tell it to right now. I'm going to click on the form, and the start position, I'm going to change this to center screen. Now when I run it, now you'll notice it's right in the middle of the screen. All right. Okay. Now, when I put these controls in, you may or may not remember, I put in the buttons, then I put in the text boxes, and then I put in the labels. So that is the tab order right now. And what I mean is when you run the program, watch what happens when I hit tab. It's going from button to button, then from text box to text box. Technically, you can't get what's called the focus on a label. That's why those aren't being set. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to manually set the focus. Now, what I'm going to show you now may or may not be the way they show it in the book, but it's how I'm going to do it now. All right? It's how I'm going to do it right now, and I think it's the easiest way. And that is I'm going to go to Project, and then way down towards the bottom. In fact, I'm going to click first on the form. Then I'm going to go to Project. Oh, where are you? Under View, I think it is. View. Tab order. Right there. And I can tell it the order I want. So I want this to be the first thing. So that'll be 0. These you would think are going to be next, but they're read-only. So I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These don't really matter, but I'll say anyway 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I have to turn the tab order off again by doing another View tab order. Now notice when I run the program what happens. It starts at the beginning, then it goes to the first button, the second button, the third button, then it goes back again to the other text boxes. Okay, that's pretty neat. Now, we're going to do something we haven't done yet, and that is two things. First, we want to make sure that when we run the program, if we hit the Enter key, the Calculate button is going to go. And if we hit the Escape key, the Clear button is going to run. So I'm going to go and click on the form, and I'm going to tell it over here to go all the way up near the top and find Accept button. And I'm going to say set that to BTN Calculate. That means whenever we hit the Enter key, the code that's by that button is going to run. Now, we don't have any code there yet, but it's okay. Then I'm going to go down to Cancel button. It says none. I'm going to click and choose BTN Clear. That means when we hit the Escape key, the code that's there is going to run. Now, there's no code in here at all, but we're going to put some in right now. All right. I like to put in and double click. This is, there's two ways that you can go. I can right mouse click here and I can choose View Code. Okay. Don't worry about what any of this means. Or I can double click on here, just double click, but I'm going to double click on each button. So double click on Calculate. Notice it says Private Void BTN Calculate. Well, that's the first one. Then it's got Private Void BTN Clear. That's the second one. And now it has Private Void BTN Exit. So those are where we're going to put some code. All right. Now this stuff that's up here, these are all different things that get provided by the system. They're system files that are being added to the program. And you'll notice that other than the first one on line 1 and the one on line 9, the rest of them are all grayed out, which means technically we don't need any of them. There. All right. Now, this is a namespace. Notice what it says, Windows Forms app _ Chapter02. It's the same name that we used here, except dashes get replaced with underscores. So that's where we are. That's what this is basically. All right. Now this says public partial class FRM invoice total :form. Well, FRM invoice total is this. It's our form. It inherits from, and that's what the colon is, the form class, which is here, up there in blue. And it's a partial class, which we get into a lot later, and I don't want to confuse you right now. This right now is called a constructor. All right, when that runs, it basically is going to go and set up your form. All right, it'll create the GUI, whatever you want to say. Okay, now I'm going to put something in here. It's going to look a little strange, and we're going to remove it, but I want to show you how we can get code in each one of these. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put in message box. So message box dot show, and I'm going to put I'm going to put here calculate button clicked, just like that, and a semicolon at the end. Now I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to put it here, but I want this to say clear button clicked, and I want this one to say exit button clicked. All right, that's all I've done so far. Let's do a file, save all, and let's run the program. And now you'll notice when I click the calculate button, it says calculate button clicked. When I click the clear button, it says clear button clicked. And when I click the exit button, it says exit button clicked. Now we can put a title up here, we can put an icon here, etc. I'm not worried about those right now. But these all are working. So everything we've wired up as far as code so far is working. That's a good start. All right. Now, I'm going to give you this code later, and I've got to find it. But the first thing I'm going to do, the one I usually put in first, is my exit button. So I'm going to comment this out right there. I just did 2 forward slashes. It's green, which means it's really not going to run anymore. So if I run the program now and click the exit button, nothing will happen. All right, that's okay. But, and again, I'll give you this code, but I've got to find it first. Let's see. I got to remember where I put it. It is not there. Oh, crud. Well, let's see if we can build it ourselves. Okay. All right. We do have this message box.show, and I'm going to build something similar to it. All right. Let's see. In fact, let's Google it. How do I add code to the exit button? Let's see what they're putting in here. Now, we could do something real simple, which is probably what they're going to do here. But I don't want to do something simple. We can do this. I'll grab this for now. This isn't what we typically would want to do in here. Okay? Because it's real harsh. So watch what happens. When I run this now and I click exit, the program just ends. We're not giving the user, if they accidentally click that, we're not giving them a way out, is what I'm telling you. And that isn't good. All right? Oh, let's see if we can find something better here. Yeah, we can do this dot close, which will do the same thing. And And they're putting stuff in here that's way too simplistic. This .close or application.exit, that's what we just looked at. And it's totally fine, but I'd like to what is the command? Exit a console app. How do you specify? How to do an exit with a yes or no. This looks much better. That looks good. All right. I'm going to just grab all of this and make my own changes to it. So this is another thing we could put in here. I'll comment that out as well. But I'm going to put in this. All right, dialog result, DR. What the heck is that? Dialog result is what comes up when you run the message box. So we're going to say, do you want to exit? All right. And then underneath that, we're going to put in a title to this. That's going to say, exit program now. All right. And then we're going to give the user the choice of a yes or a no. All right. And we're going to put an icon there that looks like a question mark. And if they do click yes, that they want to exit the program, now we will do this. But if they don't say yes, we'll stay there. Let's run it, and then we'll go back and break it down. So now we got a title that says exit program now. And we've got a question mark there and a do you want to exit. If we click yes, it'll exit. If we click no, it stays where it is. So when you look right here, exit program now, that is this. Do you want to exit? That is this. Yes, no buttons is here. The question mark icon is here. Now, if we do click yes, the program ends. Pretty simple. All right, just like that. And there's more than one way to write this, but that's probably about the cleanest. All right, now, what I want to do when we click the clear button is I want to do literally, it was plugged in, maybe I'm not. There we go. All right, what I want to do is 5 things when I click the clear button. I want that to clear, that to clear, that to clear, that to clear, and I want my cursor to go right here. That's what I want to have happen when I click the clear button, okay? And there are multiple ways that this technically can be done. I'm going to show you what I consider to be the most intuitive and the easiest way. So to clear here, again, I don't need that message anymore that says clear button clicked. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my first one, which was txt. And you remember the first thing was subtotal dot text. I'm going to set it equal to nothing. Then I'm going to say txt discount percent is equal to nothing. Then I'm going to say txt, oh, it didn't like that. What didn't it like? I said txt discount percent, but I have to say dot text, the text we put in there. Then txt discount amount dot text equals nothing. Txt total dot text equals nothing. Finally, I want my cursor to go by this field right here. And now I have to say dot focus, like that. So that's saying clear out whatever was in this one, 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 and finally put my focus back there. Now, when I test this, remember the three of the 4 boxes are read-only. So I can put whatever I want in here and click in here. Notice when I click clear, my cursor goes back there and that clears. If I want to quickly test it to make sure all of that stuff works, I can highlight these three, and I can, just for a second, I'm going to change the read-only from true to false. All right, now I'm going to run the program again, just so you see it. Put something in each one of these. Now I'm right here. When I click clear, this should clear, 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 and it should put my cursor right there. And everything's working. So that's done. All right, I'm going to change these back again because they are meant to be read-only. All right, so the only one we've got to put something down here for yet is the calculate button. Now let's go back to our book. Let's go back to our book, our slides, whatever you want to call it, because we've done this now. All right, and I showed you the labels. Labels are whole. They're pretty much like headings. Text boxes are where you can either input information or have information output to you. And buttons. All right, I had a phone call, so I had to stop for a couple minutes. Again, labels, basically, they're kind of the equivalent of headings. Text boxes are where you either allow the user to input information or you show the output of information. Buttons are typically where you're going to put your code. It's not the only place that you have to put your code, and you'll see more of this as we go on in here. All right, so again, this is the form designer in here. There's your toolbox. There's your Solution Explorer. There's your properties window. All right, just kind of keep that in mind as we go. So skills that you need for working with controls. Well, to add a control to a form, there's actually 2 or 3 ways you can do it. You can come in and you can double click on the control and it'll put it in there. You can click on the control and drag it over. All right, and actually those are the 2 you'll probably use almost all the time. To move a control, you literally click on it. To resize it, you click on it. I showed you already how to create or select a group of controls. All right. I've shown you how to align and size things. Okay, you can change the size of the form. I showed you that as well. And we just looked at tab order. So we've looked at a lot of this already. So as it says, this is the form designer after everything's been set. The only thing, again, that I have changed is I added a button between these 2 buttons that was called clear. All right, so here's some of the properties. I showed you how to set the name of a control. I showed you how to set the text for a control. I showed you the accept button. I showed you the cancel button. I showed you the start position. Enabled just basically means if something is enabled, all right, that you can use it. All right. Disabled means you can't. Read only you've looked at. Tab index we've looked at. Don't worry about the tab stop for right now. And the text align we've looked at already. All right, so how to adjust the tab order? I showed you what I consider to be the easiest way of doing that. The access keys, just so you see this, if you remember, if we go back to our program here, we have the C has got the underline, the L has got the underline, and the X has got the underline. If we run this again, you already know this. But if I click the exit button, it says, do you want to exit? If I say no, fine. But since I've got that X there, if I hold down on the Alt key and tap the letter X, the same thing happens. For my clear, if I click here, it clears. Or if I come here and do, now notice I'm over here, and I do an Alt L, it also clears. And we haven't put anything in the subtotal yet. All right, we'll look at that in just a moment. Otherwise, I'll make something up. Okay? All right. Enter and escape key. I already showed you the accept button and the cancel button. All right, the Solution Explorer, I showed you that when we rename something. You can rename a file, a project, a solution. You can rename almost anything. And you've seen how to save already. That's it. So let's go and actually look and see in the book. So in our textbook, I'm going to jump way back here. Okay, that's not far enough. So we've gone through Chapter 2, and I went through the um, slides, the PowerPoint presentations for this. All right. So we went over configuring this. You typically aren't going to want to jack with this. Just take my word for it. There's more stuff in here that you can set. All right. I don't think it's worth it, but that's my opinion. All right. You know how to come in and create a new project now. You know how to design a form. Again, that's the one we created. We had those 4 labels, those 4 text boxes. I added 3 buttons. They mentioned text box, what you use it for, etc., all the other things, what you use them for. A label display text, kind of a heading, text box lets you enter information or show information, and a button, which again typically is where you put your code to initiate processing. All right, you've seen already how you can add controls to a form. We've looked a little bit at setting properties. Some of the common properties here, all controls should have a name. Many controls will have a text property. You'll notice that our labels had text. Our text boxes did not have text because that's what we provide. All right, navigation features. We did the tab order. We did the access keys. So we've looked at those already. Enter and escape. It says in Chapter 10 you'll learn a different way. That's what I showed you now. I think it's easier. Property settings. This is what they called their things. Now again, labels, a lot of times in books, for labels, they won't give them names. They'll just call them label 1, label 2. I don't do that. I gave everything a name. I think that's the best thing to do. All right, finishing the design for a project, saving the files, yeah, that's fine. Let's put our own thing in here. What do I mean? Well, we're finishing up with Chapter 2 here. But before we do, right now the control or the calculate button in our program doesn't do a flamin' thing. Let's make it do something. Let's say if we put $100 in here, let's say the discount percent is automatically 10%. All right, so this should say 10%. Then this should say, if it's 10% there, it would be $10 off $90. So let's do that. All right, so I'm going to come in here in my calculate, and I don't need this button, this thing in there anymore, that message box. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create what's called a variable. All right, and that variable is going, in fact, I'll create a constant. Const decimal, and I'm going to say, usually make these uppercase, discount amount, and I'm going to set that equal to 10%, which is 0.1 M. All right, we're not using it right now, and that's why it's green right here. All right, and we'll make a couple of other variables here. I'm going to say here decimal, discount total. In fact, we'll make 3. Decimal subtotal, decimal discount amount, and decimal total. Now, we can give all these initial values. So I can set that equal to 0. But it doesn't want just a 0. It wants to show that it's a decimal M, either a capital M or a lowercase m. So again, equals 0M and equals 0M. All right. Now, I'm going to do this. And we'll go over all this in class. I'm going to say subtotal equal, let's see. All right, that doesn't like this. So what doesn't it like? Subtotal. Oh, I'm just going to do a parse, not a try parse. There we go. All right, and I'm going to say discount amounts equal, we said it was automatically 25% or 10%, I should say. So that'll be subtotal times our discount amount. All right. The discount, in fact, that's the discount percent. That's it right here. That's our discount percent. Okay, our discount amount will be this times our discount percent, and our total will be equal to our subtotal minus our discount amount, just like that. All right. Now, a couple other things that we want to do here. We want to say txt discount amount dot text equals discount amount dot toString with a C there. We want it to be in currency format. And finally, our txt total dot text equals total dot string. Just like that. Now, I don't expect much of this to make sense, but let's run it and look at it. All right, so file, save all. You saw this before. If I put $100 here and I click calculate, all right, we got 10 bucks off, and the total, well, the total's wrong. We'll fix it right now when we're not printing on our percent. So txt discount percent dot text equals our discount percent dot toString, but we want that to print out as a percentage. All right. And what is this? Amount total equals the subtotal minus the discount amount. So let's save that. And let's put in a different number. How about 500 here? So this should come out and say 10%. This should say $50. And 500 minus 50 should say 450 here. And everything is working. We can clear now and do it again. Now, it's real easy to break the program. If I leave this blank, it's going to break. This is all stuff we're going to go into in later classes. All right? But to very quickly finish this up, this line in green right here says, I want to take whatever you put into that first text box and convert it to a number, or attempt to. All right? If we left it blank, it didn't work, as you saw. All right? This line says take whatever we put in for that subtotal, the 500, multiply it by 0.1, and that's going to be our discount amount. Finally, that's 50. So total equals our subtotal, which is 500. Our discount amount is our subtotal, 500 times that 10%, or $50. And then our total is our subtotal, 500, minus our discount amount, which is 50, 450. All right? And this just says format all values in their respective text boxes. Now, one I did not change was the subtotal. I can say txt subtotal dot text equals subtotal dot toString, and put that in there as a C also. And the C, it doesn't matter if you use upper or lowercase. C is currency, P is for percent. We'll learn other ones as we go on. So now this is our whole program. File, save all. So if I come through here and say $367, if I click calculate right now, this should say 10%. This should say $36.70. And this will say something like 360.30 if I did my math right. 330.30. Okay? So everything's working. We can clear. We can put in something else. All right. And again, it appears at least as though everything in here is working. Now we're going to spend a lot more time in class going over this. All right. I want to say that again. We're going to spend a lot more time in class going over this. Finally, in the next chapter of our text, we will be going over Chapter 3. Notice how to code and test. So what we do is we write the code in here. Now, I've already written it. All right? So I've already done all this, but they change it around a little bit, and that's totally fine. Okay? All right, so we'll come back and look at that one in just a bit.